Hey there, Sagittarius. This is Seven Scorpion Tarot, and I want to welcome you to tonight's reading. So, tonight I was checking out the celestial weather, and I didn't see any planets in your sign, so I thought we'd do something a little bit different. I still want to do a self, shadow, and ego, but I want to add a deeper layer to that by adding in some archetypal aspects to that. So, in the shelf, in the self, I want to look at the sage archetype, and then in the shadow, the wounded healer, and in the ego, the archer. I thought that was kind of a fun way to find something deeper to get into without any planets available as like a jumping off point for anything going on deeper in the psyche right now. And what better sign than the sign of the sage? So let's get some cards and let's get into it and see how we do. So with the sage, that archetype, like Gandalf, Yoda, Merlin, uh, characters like that all come to mind. And the interesting shadow side of the sage is elitism. It can be very like haughty, judgy. And as we're looking into these different aspects and their positions of the self, shadow, and ego, in that self position, however the cards come out, this could be something that needs to be integrated from both the shadow and ego side, because getting into it like this deep, there's the lens of individuation to consider. Now if you want to keep it a little bit lighter, the other thing to consider is that whatever card we get, is this a way for us to honor that archetype as our authentic self? And even if Sagittarius isn't your sun sign, this could be relevant to uh, whatever the placement is in your chart. Like my Sagittarius placement is midheaven, so that's like my public image, like how I present for my career and stuff like that, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember which house though. And since we have the sage in the self position, this might also be something we need to learn to get in touch with our authentic self. That did quite the topsy turvy. So, came out originally in the upright, but then topsy turvied into the reverse. And it's the hanged man. So, that's like a funky energy in the sage and the self. So, a lot going on in maybe our perception of our authentic self, or how we're perceiving the world around us from the position of the authentic self. I know that's something that I've been going through a lot, uh, just with the state of things right now. Like once I took the blinders off, those just aren't ever going to fit again. Uh, and what what a perfect card for the sage, and doing that big motion too, because looking at things from being able to see things from multiple perspectives, whether it's experiential empathy, cognitive empathy, that that's quite the dance to be able to maintain and not get lost in preconceived notions and things like that. So very, I almost want to say like admirable and like something to aspire to, of being able to see things from multiple perspectives, whether that's positive or negative, healthy or unhealthy, but just being able to look at it in a multitude of different ways. And in this card, there's a crow at the top. So this is the Murder of Crows tarot. And so, regardless of which way this card comes out, there's somebody seeing it from both perspectives. Interesting. And they're going to have very different perspectives between one another, the Hanged Man and a crow. So that could be the lesson here. Maybe there's something coming up that is going to require that like broader macro view, which is interesting too, because that's how I think of the archer in the ego, is like they're different than like the frontline infantrymen being up close and personal. They have more of that reserved, like pulled back macro view. Interesting. I'll start shuffling for the shadow, and this is the wounded healer. So maybe this is what we need to gain or look at through multiple perspectives. And I know that can be really hard. Especially if it's like a situation that is negatively impacting you. It can be like people can be so caught up in their own lives, they really truly have no regard for you, for what's going on with you. I'm not making excuses for that. I'm just saying like that's uh the radical acceptance approach. Like this is what's occurring, and then not attaching expectation to that. Just very cold, flat, this is what's happening. And looking at situations from that starting point of what is occurring, not what should be occurring, not that everybody should be interacting with each other with empathy, because that is, leading to better outcomes. That wanted to come out. Something with that. Oh, the High Priestess in the shadow, the wounded healer. Okay. So the way this feels to me is almost like religious trauma. Like, I know she's not the Hierophant, but like the structures within the traditional Hierophant card, those Catholic structures would have been more readily accepted in my family structure growing up. Things like the High Priestess would not have been, even though the two pillars of the High Priestess, like the pillars of cloud and fire, Exodus, anybody? Like it's down to that perception thing, that like not making assumptions based on that surface level or that first brush with whatever information that you get, looking at it from the complete opposite perspective, or looking for the deeper meaning in the symbolism. And then the wounded healer, I mean, that would be Chiron. I think Chiron is in Aries right now, and Mars just stationed direct in Cancer. So there might be a lot of anger being pulled up in regards to your Chiron placement, like however that plays out, or wherever your Mars placement is. Uh, and the High Priestess too. So she knows stuff and things, secret things. And there's that association too, like the Pillars of Cloud and Fire. There's a connection to the Freemasons um, in the High Priestess card, and so like secret society, like you can get really deep into the secrets of the High Priestess, and in the Rider Waite, she's got a, I think she has a pomegranate. So someone that traverses worlds, a reference to Persephone. This could be, let's say, I'm gonna bring it out of the mystical a little bit, kind of ground it down into the mundane. Let's say you are like me, a woman with a traumatic background, and you have tried to get help unsuccessfully for some stuff. Uh, Knowing things and then not being believed, that will leave a very, very deep wound. Uh, it'll destroy your perception of systems you once counted on. And not just the systems, but the people in your life. Like it really, like, thank goodness for Maya Angelou. When people show you their true colors, believe them. But it's a lot of that, of seeing the truth of the matter, back to that radical acceptance. Like this is all very seeing things for what they are, not necessarily what you want them to be. And there's 7 crows. You could refer that to like the 7 of Swords, the 7 of Cups, deception, illusion. And I think this moon, like this specific, the way it's drawn, is a reference to Hecate. However, I've heard both. I hear Hecate more often, but I think that there's something special about that. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll start shuffling for the ego. So this is the Archer. Uh, but it seems like there's a wound around truth here. But so the Archer is going to be that more aloof, kind of self-possessed, detached, looking at it from the higher perspective, looking at the battlefield of when they loose their arrow, where's it going to land? Because once they release it, you can't change the course of that arrow. Um, and if you're lobbing it into a battlefield, like you can't change that, an obstruction might run in front of your target, stuff like that. They might see the arrow coming. So calculated, something calculated in the ego. And the ego position, for this like condensed Jungian map of the soul, that's going to include the persona. So this might be how you're presenting, uh, or how you achieve that like removed demeanor. Because depending on what you're dealing with, that might be the way, is to have that delayed reaction, like take a moment to take aim before you loose your arrow, rather than reacting immediately, like what the necessity would be for, uh, like for an infantryman, somebody really up close and personal, like recognizing your position in whatever situation that you're in, is that it doesn't require immediate, right that second response. It might feel that way, but maybe it's not required. And that's also regardless of like whomever else is involved in this situation. If there's an external aspect to it and it's not, just a reflective, like, um you're reviewing a situation, kind of like decompressing, like going over it, compiling all the information after getting through a situation. It's interesting how these things can present both internally and externally. Like when I see readings about, divine masculine, divine feminine, stuff like that, I like to interpret that as aspects of self, of, I'm my own knight in shining armor, and what am I doing to save myself? And it's, you can also look at that stuff from like the animus anima perspective. What might need to be integrated. So a card for the ego. Pretty please. Maybe there's more to be said about the high priestess. Something else hidden. And her eyes are obscured where the hanged man is not. So he's seen the truth, eyes wide open, and she's seen the truth, eyes wide shut. And since this is the shadow position as well, how might these be presenting, or how might your subconscious, here we go, be, trying to talk to you through maybe dreams, or synchronicities? And that's like right, this popped out right as I was about to talk about dreams. So the Knight of Swords in reverse in the ego. So this is like the antithesis of the Archer, at least in the upright, because it's very fast, very hasty, kind of like a reckless hero, not not using his mind, uh, even though it's the Knight of Swords, the mental suit. So that could be the caution for the ego of be careful of the urge to react to maybe a truth that's being revealed. When I did wear my eyeball ring today. Uh, so some sort of truth that's being revealed. Oh, and maybe half truths. Maybe something's coming up where you're being given half truths, or you've been given half truths in the past. Something's might be tapping on the shadow, like when they say the past returns for a bit, it's not necessarily the exact same people, the exact same situation, but it's like a phantom of something that you've been through before. And something might knock on a wound from the shadow that created sort of a reactive like pathway in the ego that might be hard to resist when that button gets hit again. So this could be the test, the stage 6 in the hero's journey, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. See if we can get some underlying energies. But that is definitely how I'm interpreting that ego position. Too long for my tiny little hands. Uh, your ego is going to want to react to something. And this might just be in general that it's not necessarily predicting that, next Tuesday something's going to come up specifically that's going to hit this wound in the shadow. It just might be that there's unfinished business here, which who doesn't have unfinished business in their psyche? Which one of us do not have that? uh, and it might be something that while that wound is not being agitated, you feel fine with it. Once that button gets hit, though, you might want to be rushing in, and the Knight of Swords in reverse is saying, like, hold your horses, literally. I think that's kind of a fun way to dig deep, though, without any planets to jump off of. Is that just one? Yep. Uh, but by getting into those deeper layers of the archetype of that sign. Oh, consequences. Let me get her some coverage. There we go. Um, hmm. I feel like this could go a number of ways because consequences could be like if you react quickly, hastily in that upright Knight of Swords manner, then like there's all this fire in the background. Uh, this does kind of look like she's doing a yoga pose though, and there's all this like power coming up like behind her in the background. And I wonder, is a consequence of you being treated poorly in the past, of not being believed, or you found out something that maybe wasn't like you weren't meant to, or somebody didn't want you to find out. And so now the consequence of that is it sharpened your radar of now you know to pause and look at that battlefield from that bird's eye view of, okay, what the heck is going on here? Uh, and she's got like one eye obscured and one eye not. So she's like the balance between these two cards with her, both her eyes obscured and his eyes not. So she's kind of traversing both aspects of the self and the shadow. So then really the consequences are what choice you make whenever you're presented with whatever situation that knocks on this wound, this button. Maybe do some yoga before responding to whatever text message, voicemail, email, whatever. And like if it's in person, you can always just excuse yourself to the restroom if you need a like, whew, wash your hands in cold water or something for whatever's going on. Uh, it would be really weird if somebody like didn't let you pop off to the restroom. Like if you suddenly were like, I need to excuse myself. So I guess that's something to think about, to have in the back of your head of what are my steps if I get super anxious all of a sudden or like really mad. Uh, anger, that's a big one for me. That's my most difficult mode, fight mode. Uh, catching that anger, getting a lid on it before I actually react. I don't always win that race. Get one of these cards and see maybe we can get a song uh, that might have okay, this one. But a song that might have some lyrics that are synchronous for us in the air tonight, in this moment. That's an amazing cover. One of my favorite covers that I've heard. I feel like I need one more thing. Let me get one of these two, since we were talking about both the pillars of the High Priestess card. Yeah, really, really like that cover. That is on their album Ritual. And then these white cards, this will be like, oh, here we go, Fallout. So now there is also a show in addition to the video game. So whichever is your preference, if you've got time to replay one of the games, I don't even know what's on the docket next for the games, but I really like the show. I think it was on Amazon. It was a lot of fun. It was a really enjoyable show. So a lot of stuff to dig into. So looking at the truth of something, checking those reactions, maybe pumping the brakes a little bit and considering the consequences of whichever path it is that we choose. So overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.